Hello, it's Larry Clark with another Meet the Composer episode. And today we have Carol Brittin Chambers along with band director Brian Gallagher. And Brian's going to start asking questions and ask all the things he wants to know about Carol and her writing and stuff like that. So take it away, Brian.
Well, hey, thanks for having me, guys, and I really appreciate your time. So I asked my students, we posted, in the situation we're in, I just posted some prompts to my students on Google Classroom and just had them start feeding me some questions. So Carol, their first question was, why did you become a composer?
That's a good question. Well, I haven't been doing concert band composition for a very long time, actually, but I did just a little bit about my background. When I was little, I was taking a lot of piano and stuff like that. And so I did do my first compositions when I was young, like in elementary school. But then later on, I got my undergrad degree in music education. I wanted to be a band director, which I was for a while. And I was also really serious about performance. So I got my master's degree in trumpet performance. And so during those times, I was concentrating on those two elements, not doing so much writing. But while I was teaching, I started doing tons of marching band arranging. Yeah. And that just started to take off. So that's really when I started writing, so to speak. And then a little bit later is when I started incorporating the concert band aspects into that. And so I feel like the reason I became one is I discovered that I could do it. And a lot of that was just, I think I maybe was born with some talent in terms of being able to hear stuff and just write it down, and like all my arranging. I don't need scores or anything, but also developing the skills. So again, from a really early age, I think I did develop like ear training skills and all that kind of stuff needed. And then after that, so I think it sort of became this sweet spot in my career where the stars aligned and I realized, hey, I could do this. And I like to do it. It is a very creative part of my life. It's kind of my whole life now, other than my family. And so that's why when I learned I could actually survive doing it as well, that's just all of the best of all the worlds coming together. So.
Gotcha. The next question they asked was, where do you typically draw your inspiration from?
Yeah, sure. That's a great question too. For me, I think it just has to do with a lot of times what's going on in the world. Certain current events can spark things. But also, I've told Larry this before, but I do have a running list of titles of just things that I haven't gotten to yet, like about 100 of them that at some point I want to write, because it's like, oh, I think that might be a cool idea for a certain age group, or that might be a cool idea. So I have ideas already going in my head. Okay. I want to, but a lot of times for me, it's also comes from nature. I'm really a big tree hugger and a bird lover and everything. So sometimes things in nature inspire me. And then the other obvious answer is sometimes there's a really specific reason, because it's in honor or memory of someone, just like To Create a Voice was. And so those are often the most special pieces that we get to write. So
do you find, is that difficult for you to write when it's for like a person or a memory or something like that?
No, not well, it depends. There's some where sometimes it depends on the director or whoever is commissioning it, what we decide it's going to be like, Okay. So sometimes they want it to be a very slow, emotional, pretty piece. Yeah. And then sometimes, like To Create a Voice wasn't just that. They wanted it to encompass more of Mr. Anderson's personality and just what he had given, in terms of his really being just such an awesome teacher, an awesome educator. So sometimes it's, those maybe are just take me a little bit longer, because sometimes I have to really learn more about this person, different aspects of the person, not just one emotion. So like with him, I was trying to capture even his quirky mood, like you read in the program notes and things like that. That was the do re mi coming in there.
Yeah, and, that was my favorite part.
Yeah, so that had to do with the first songs he would ever teach, and also just his kind of, apparently, I didn't know him personally, but everyone who told me about him said he had this really great personality and was jovial and funny. He would tell jokes, and so trying to incorporate those kinds of things can be just maybe take me a little bit more time, but sometimes those are the most rewarding also.
Well, and in teaching that piece, for example, once I made students aware of these things and these ideas, I mean, it brought whole new life to the piece of music.
Sure.
They enjoyed it right when we first read it, but then once I started saying, this is what this is, or play these first 3 notes, or hey, now play them in reverse, or listen to measure 71. What did you just play? And that
Cool.
it just started bringing a new life to the students, that they started putting in their own perspective and their own, and that's why we programmed it in March. This whole Music in Our Schools Month movement. We said, oh, what a perfect opportunity to share, these students to be able to get a voice through music. So since we're talking to create a voice, just a little, one of my students asked, why did you put so many different time signatures in that piece?
That is so funny. Somebody else has asked me that before too. Well, part of it was I wanted it to have a little bit of challenge and not just be the same old thing all the way through. Again, that is a little bit symbolic of the different moods and personalities I was trying to capture for Mr. Anderson. So I think it just, and also for grade 3, I wanted to give them some variety and something, like when those low reads kind of have a little groove to set up, something kind of interesting for everyone. Not just the trumpets and clarinets all the time or something like that.
Whole notes in the tubas and.
Yeah, exactly. Trying to give everyone something fun.
How have life experiences changed the way you think about writing music? That's kind of a deep question there.
That is quite deep. How have life experiences? Well, I don't know if it's changed the way I write music. Again, I haven't been writing concert band for so long, but I suppose any time you go through different experiences in your life, it allows you to feel more emotion, and so maybe new emotions that you haven't felt before. And I think so much of the arts and creativity is pulled from those inner emotions that we have. That's what inspiration is all about. So, and the more you travel, or at least with me, the more I travel, the more I see different places and different people, it gives me much more perspective. Certainly if I'm going to places that have music that sound a little bit different than over here in the US, that will influence my writing quite a bit, trying to capture different sounds, different percussion instruments.
I see. Let's see. Oh, when you're composing, what's the most important thing you want to keep in mind when you're about to write a composition, or maybe in the process of writing a piece? What's the most important thing that comes to your mind?
Wow, that's a hard one. So many factors we're considering while we're writing.
That had to have been a flute player, I think, who asked that one.
Yeah. Oh gosh, I would say the most important thing would be, again, is there an opportunity somewhere in the piece for everyone to have something that they enjoy or that makes it memorable for them? Like you said, definitely don't want the low brass having to play whole notes all the time. I think that's what it is trying to make sure there's something enjoyable. Even the director, there's something they maybe get out. And maybe that means it's something that they just haven't seen before or that they haven't gotten to do before.
I see. Very cool. This is another deep question. I think they just worded it funny, but is there anyone that you wish your music can influence? Maybe anyone or specific person that you would want your music to touch? I know.
No, I wouldn't say there's just any one particular person. I think it's, well, yeah, I don't know. I don't think it would be just one. I think certainly when it's played, I hope it touches more than one person in the audience,
Yeah.
And definitely if it was written in honor of someone, I want it to touch that family.
Yeah.
I hope that it will. So I guess that's my answer.
Do you have like a favorite grade level that you write for, or like medium? Like, do you enjoy writing? I know you write a lot of marching band stuff out there, but is there something that just is what's your favorite thing when you get to sit down and write?
Well, this is a multifaceted answer, I guess.
Yeah.
What I love about the marching band writing is I'm usually arranging other stuff and then I throw my own elements in there. But sort of that teaches me a lot. And what I love about that is I'm getting to combine maybe modern type stuff with traditional things like enigma variations or something like that. So that's has been a trend now for quite a while, is to get to mix all kinds of styles together. So I love that about marching band, but it really teaches me a lot, because sometimes I'm like, oh, I just noticed, oh, this is what this composer did here. That's pretty cool. And then now I'm going to put my own chords under there and make it just maybe more modernized this way or something. But I learn a lot from those. And then on the other hand, I love then getting to sit down and write concert music, because it is truly all of mine. All the ideas are mine. And then I think Larry Clark and I have talked about this before, but then you get to use some different colors more often than you would on the marching field. So more double reeds and you're not so restricted in terms of the length of ideas. You can develop something quite a bit more if you want. So, but in terms of grade level, yeah, I like writing all of them for different reasons. Obviously, we are more restricted when we're writing like grade 1, grade 2, and a lot of it has to do with ranges and things. But definitely when I get to grade 3, grade 4, that's very fun, because you just know the students can do more on their instrument, and so you can give these bigger leaps, or just sometimes whatever your ear is hearing, it's okay to write that for like a 4 and 5 for sure. That's really fun.
Yeah. So I know you were a teacher, before you were composing. Were you writing for your own groups at times, or how did you get into like switching from being an educator full time to being a composer full time?
Yeah, you hit the nail on the head. While I was teaching, especially that's where my marching band writing started. I was writing for some of our own groups, and then pretty soon it got where other directors across the state and the nation would say, hey, can you write my show? And will you write my show? And I was like, yeah. So that turned into a whole thing. So yeah. And then I think because I taught young kids also, I taught middle school as well as high school. And so beginners, and that's where I really learned and could understand what the different instruments were capable of at young ages. I think that's really what helps me write the grade 1s and 2s. So.
Yeah. And it's hard to get a good grade 1 piece out there. That you're so limited, but to find those things to keep them engaged and keep them, so it's not all just a carbon copy too, that grade 1. And I think it's again too, you think about the plethora of music out there, what's going to make your stuff stand out and what's going to make your piece memorable for sure.
Yeah.
Do you have any recommendations to young composers, maybe somebody who's just kind of maybe in high school thinking about their future, thinking about, I enjoy writing. What do you have any recommendations or suggestions for them?
Oh, I sure do. And especially if they're in high school already and they're really, really starting to get serious about this. But, I would encourage them to really understand how to spell chords, as basic as that sounds, but really understanding just what kind of chord progressions sound good, but really understanding how to spell chords, so that basic element is in place. So a little bit of theory. Usually the theory analysis comes later after things are written, but understand, again, there have been lots of composers that already came before us, and we can learn from what worked for them and what didn't sound so great. So that's why we study theory and stuff. So the more they can get a handle on that, and some ear training skills, those are skills, so they need to practice, and getting better at those intervals and all that kind of stuff. That's just going to better equip them to really be able to write stuff that is pleasing to everyone. And then, other than that, really just saving everything they have, showing their ideas to their directors like you. I don't know any directors that aren't willing to look at students, work and give feedback, or, hey, let's play it tomorrow in rehearsal, or, next month when we have some time or whatever. And then when they hear it live, they can just get so much. That's such a great education right there, hearing it.
Yeah, that we do that a lot. We try to every semester we're putting in small little composition examples like for the students. So sometimes they'll write just for their own instrument. Okay, write a 4-bar melody in this key signature, in this time signature. So I'll give them parameters of exactly what you're gonna do, and then play it. Can you play it? How does it sound in your instrument? And then go ahead. No, please go.
I was gonna say that's wonderful that you have them starting out not with just a full band, because that can be so overwhelming. But maybe just their instrument, then just their instrument family.
Yeah.
Then move into just or just strings, because you're not dealing with so much transposition there. do you teach strings? I know.
I do have a string class. Yeah, I have a
Yeah.
beginning string class.
I know in
So,
California, I'm in Texas, and we don't
yeah.
tend to overlap as
Yeah.
much as you guys do. But yeah, no, that's so great. And yeah, and starting with smaller projects, and then they can really learn as they go in smaller increments about the range of the instruments and what works on certain instruments.
Well, that was really last year is when I really started digging into that, and it was really eye-opening to me is when I did put them in small groups, small trios, and quartets, and they had to write. I think we did a 16-bar example, but it was fun to see the kids say, "Well, can you even play this? Or does this? Hey, this sounds like this on my trumpet, but this doesn't sound right on your saxophone. What's going on here?" And then they realize range, and they realize key, and sometimes they just go into like a note flight or something like that, and they just type out random stuff, and then they play it back, and they go, "Well, that didn't really sound what I wanted it to sound." So seeing that process.
Yeah, or sometimes stuff sounds pretty good coming back through the computer, but then you pass it out, and it's like, oh, I don't like to play in the key of B major. That wasn't
no, I had that happen this not too long ago. Somebody wrote something in this wild key for all the kids, and they're just like, "Wait, what am I doing? How does this work?" But it worked for some, but not all. And so they start learning these processes.
Right. Well, so similar in my college class, orchestration class that I teach, same thing. It's like, guys, all these pop tunes, they love the key of E major or G flat, or these different groups that works, or it works when they're playing guitar with it and stuff. But now when we're going to take that into band, for example, what are some other keys that would be much better? Let's think about that. Be close, but let's think more flats, or, and so they really start to learn that. And the other thing that you made me think of this is then when they pass out their projects and they're playing them, and the rest of the band is raising their hand, and like, well, I don't even have that rehearsal, or I don't have those dynamics that you're talking about, and they realize how important just everything getting into all the parts, and there's that thing too. So anyway,
no, we had an incident not too long ago where a kid was writing something for somebody, and they came to me and go, "Mr. Gallagher, I don't have an A sharp. How do I play an A? Where's the A sharp? It doesn't make sense." And then I had to explain, well, it's, really B flat. It's just written this way because of the key. And it blew their mind because they had no clue, because it wasn't what they play every single day. So it didn't affect them that way. But it also, I like putting the composition in the music classes because they learn how to like put the pencil to the paper, and they learn like what that sound is and how to write it, because they might have something in their head, but they don't know how to transfer that. And that's, if you think about like education today, it's all about, deciphering information and what, all the steps that go into it. So how do you get this piece of music? Well, you got to go from the note to the sound to, different blends of colors, and seeing the kids learn, how to beam eighth notes, you would, to something that you just do it, but no, you actually have to. It makes sense with the meter and stuff like that.
Well, not to mention, just let's start out. What meter would you even put?
Would you even do it? Yeah.
Strong beat. Okay, let's start with that. Okay, now, what rhythm is going on? Okay, now let's get the pitches. Yeah, exactly. That's great.
Yeah. So, like I said, I put in a little bit of composition in my classes when I have like pockets of time. I try not to give dead time ever in the semester. So we've been adding some small composition. Do you have any ideas or suggestions about? Maybe a mini lesson that you could do in a band room class, or anything that you would think.
I'd have to probably think a little bit more in depth. Just not right on the spot, but I honestly think you're already doing the right thing in terms of. I love what you said about starting with your own instrument, and maybe start with a duet, and then a trio or something. But then I would expand that to just brass, just woodwind. But and then I like you said you are. I like what you said in terms of limiting it, making it, let's just do a 16 bar something. It doesn't have to be a big 9-minute work, So I really think what you're already doing, it sounds perfect.
And what we did last year when we started this, we did, okay, you have to make a little motif. And then in your next 4 bars, you're using that motif and then expanding it, change it somehow, and then come back to that motif, So we were just trying to give those little nuggets of composition, but now, really broken down for them.
Another idea would be take something that they already know that's public domain. So Mary Had a Little Lamb or Twinkle Star, whatever. And hey, this is your main melody, and let's figure out what are the normal 3 chords that are used with this tune. Okay, and you kind of explain what that is. And so here's the accompaniment that could go. all right, now what if you tried a couple of these different kinds of chords, and maybe they could experiment and find some other chords that sound kind of good too. And then, okay, what's something just a little or ostinato that someone else could play, maybe over that, like a wind or something, or a little piano thing.
Yeah.
And so kind of like little theme and variations might be a good way for them to start getting creative, but they don't have to pick something out of the blue, you know?
Yeah. I also tried this lesson last year. What I did is we basically made it like a mini, we took their 4-bar piece, right? And then we made the bass line. You had to make the ostinato for 12 bars, 16 bars. And then, 4 bars later, this, melody is going to come in. And then 8 bars later, the counter. So we just kind of try to show them like form. So not everything has to happen at one time.
Yeah.
And then they kind of learn some ideas of how to, get blend and balance, and how to, phrase something, or how do these things work together, because a lot of times they just want everything happening at once.
Right.
And sometimes the rest is like the best part of the music, when it could just breathe a little bit and then go someplace else. So
another idea then, and maybe you already thought of this one too, but just that typical form ABA.
Mm-hmm.
So you have something maybe in the middle, then it's something slower.
Mm-hmm.
And so teach them about augmentation. Hey, if you took the same idea that every note is where quarters are now halves, and just sort of an augmentation, and it's a slower tempo, and now you've turned this into a pretty chorale.
Yeah.
And then now we bring the A back again, and that would give them some satisfaction of writing something just a little bit bigger.
Yeah.
But yet there's this form, there's this structure. It's not just, what do I do now?
Yeah, no, I love it. And I think obviously more band directors should add in composition and improvisation to their everyday routine. It's hard, you know, but that's kind of the wave we're in right now. And, give those students those opportunities. As a musician or a composer, however you want to phrase this, who is your favorite composer out there? Who's your inspiration?
Oh, I have a lot.
Give it to.
Okay, well, but I'll tell you my most influential ones, and I've said this before on other podcasts, so some people may have already heard this before, but my first one was Aaron Copland, and it was Appalachian Spring. And so this was so meaningful because I came from a family of musicians, and my father was a professional horn player, actually. Mm-hmm. We would go to the mountains every year, and when I was little, all we had was this record player, vinyl. Yeah. And one of them was Appalachian Spring. And to me, of course, it just embodied the whole mountains. That's my favorite place on earth. And so anyway, that was the first time I was really ever aware of just the beauty of all these different colors of sounds, oboe and just all these different sounds coming together. It was so neat. And the strings, just gorgeous, And so then I've always loved Copeland. And then Percy Granger would be one of my other favorites. When I was in high school, and I was in an all-state group here in Texas, and I just remember we played Lincolnshire Posey, and it was with these musicians who could really play everything, and that's when I really started to pay attention as I'm sitting there when I wasn't playing, paying attention to what these cool woodwinds had, and all these little grooves that Granger set up, the saxes, all this stuff. I was just like, that is really cool how we got those colors and over here and all that. And then, but more modern composers, I guess, John Williams. I'm so influenced by him, and I think you can hear it a lot of times in my horn counter melodies and stuff. I just know that came from him. But then other movie score writers, I love that. And my kids, when we actually don't see a ton of movies, but when we do, I'm making them aware. Did you hear that with the Chains Horner just wrote? And John Powell is one of my favorites right now. They're just so many that are just great movie score writing. So I'm very influenced by that.
Well, and I think that's so important for students too, is you have to just find inspiration from anywhere.
Yeah.
And just keep it going. And it's okay. If you looked at, my playlist, it's going to be all over the place, but so is everybody's. Everybody has that wide range. And I try to express that to the students all the time. Like, you don't have to just like one artist or one genre.
Variety is great. I love bluegrass. I love classical guitar, Spanish guitar, and then like one of my new favorites. She's not new, but I've been listening to more of her a lot lately. Eliana Elias. She's like from Portugal, I think, and just Latino jazz. Just Pat Metheny. Just incredible musicians. When you listen to all these great musicians and hear what they're doing on their guitars and on their whatever, it's just like, wow, They're just so good,
Yeah.
It's just not so limited anymore when you can hear it for real and then you can imagine it. So.
I hear you. Well, and it's fun to see you kind of light up when you talk about what inspires you as a musician. I mean, that's the passion that we all have. Sometimes we just don't always get to share it the same way. When you're, how do I phrase this? When you're writing, do you just write it like all, a whole piece out, or do you kind of break it down? Do you just try to get the melody and try to figure out where you want that, or how do you kind of lay out maybe a composition?
I would say it has to depend on like what grade level, first of all, because just a grade 4 or grade 5, it would be too much for me to think about the entire thing maybe at once. Although sometimes I will sort of give some general thought to the structure. Like I most recently just did one called Song of the Fjords, and it's grade 4. So it's pretty big, meaty, but there were some influences. There was some stuff from Norway that's kind of like their not Native American, but Native folk type stuff. It was really cool, but it reminded me of some of our Native American music over here. So I knew that I wanted a little section like that with this really cool drum groove and stuff. And then I knew I wanted this middle section to be based on one of their famous Norwegian lullabies. And I'm not even going to try to pronounce it because it's got a lot of funny letters. But anyway, beautiful though. And so this lullaby, so I was like, well, that is going to be my middle section. And so then from there, I thought about what I want this to say. I want to show the grandeur of like the fjords and all that. So that's the emotion that I'm going to open the whole thing with. And so that had to do with, and my marching shows are kind of like that sometimes too. It has to do with pacing and emotion, different emotions going through the shows. But if it's like a grade 1 or grade 2 piece, it might be more like, okay, what is this tune about? Maybe I already thought of the title or something because I haven't done that piece before yet, that kind of piece. And so it's like, well, so sometimes it's a little groove that might start with me because that is what maybe determines the energy. Like when I wrote my little Danza de España, definitely I wanted a certain little feel to it. That's the Spanish. And so then sometimes what melody do I think might fit over that? And then a lot of times you have to give thought to who do you think might be playing the melody. So with clarinets, is it going to work for them? Or are they going to be going back and forth over the break too much for grade 1, and we can't do that. So it just wouldn't be good for them, So yeah, to me, it's about little grooves and melody. I'm very melody driven. So it's definitely those kinds of pieces, but that of the puzzle, I guess. Yeah. So yeah, I don't just have one process, but for certain grade levels, there are certain processes that do save you time and add some efficiency, I guess.
Yeah. No,
yeah.
I totally get that. What do you have kind of working on right now? I mean, maybe you can't say a whole lot, but what do you have? If you open up that computer, do you have?
Yeah.
Just working on one project? You got multiple things working?
Well, I will say right now I'm smack dab in the middle of all the marching shows. Yeah. So hopefully the marching season is still going to go on as planned. We're all wondering about that, but as far as I know right now, I'm still writing all that. So I'll be writing all that. I work on those every day, and I'll go through August, finishing those up. But also concert-wise, though, I just finished a grade 2. It was a little Irish deal that was because they wanted it to be in something in 6/8, which you don't have a lot of grade 2s like that. So I was like, okay, this will be challenging because I want to make it where it doesn't seem overwhelming for people who don't want to even go there. Like for teachers, you're like, I'm afraid to teach 6/8. So for me, the idea was I want to put enough repetitive patterns in there that once they get it, they'll get it. So anyway, in the grade 4, I just talked about, I just finished another grade 2. That was supposed to be premiered in May. It's probably not going to be now, but and then about 4 others throughout the fall that are on the plate, and some next year that are on the plate, and then into 2022. So a lot of new stuff.
So you do find yourself you're working on multiple projects at all times, or do you don't ever just dedicate yourself to maybe one project or one?
Well, I do day by day, but it's usually like, for these next 3 days, I'm concentrating on such and such marching show, for example, and I'm going to do that for the next 3 days. Then, and I try not to put too many concert band pieces right now. I do most of those in the fall, later in the fall, once marching season.
When you can breathe a little,
Yeah, but then it is pretty much, yeah, working on one project at a time. So I try
Okay.
to devote, you know, a certain amount of weeks for each one that I think I
Yeah.
might need. So yeah.
Great. If you had maybe one or two pieces of advice for like a young musician, maybe somebody who's kind of, we're in a weird, turmoil of times right now, but for those young musicians out there who, they don't get to go to band right now,
Yeah.
and that's like the highlight of our days. What would you just share with, young musicians out there?
Well, I would say as weird as it is right now, luckily we have technology. So isn't that
Yeah.
great? So I know like my own three kids, yesterday, all three of them were in a Zoom band class at
Yeah.
three different band classes, all at the same time. It was so funny. Actually, it was a little annoying because I was in here trying to write, but no, it was great. It was great. But yeah, so there's that. So I think it's not quite as good,
Mhm.
but they can still see their friends' faces.
Yeah.
And even if you're just working on keeping them playing, the directors.
Yeah.
So I would say to the kids, just right now you have a lot more time to practice. You're probably
Mhm.
getting your academics done maybe a little bit faster, or right now maybe the teachers haven't given you too much yet.
Yeah.
And so while you have this time, and this is what I've told my own kids, also explore something different that sometimes you don't feel you have time for. So one of my kids is like, okay, I am going to pick up that guitar
Yeah.
and back down and try to do that. I never have time to do that. One of them has
Mhm.
gotten more back into the piano a little bit. And so
Yeah.
just in terms of music, and then with composition stuff, download one of the free programs, or
Mhm.
Finale, they'll let you download a 30-minute. I think they've extended it, maybe if I'm misspeaking, I'm
Yeah.
sorry, but it's a 60-day free trial right now. And just like start playing around with that,
Mhm.
and just, or write some stuff down on paper. Just be creative, and
Yeah.
and be thankful that maybe you have some time to think about some other things for once.
Yeah. Well, and I think the big thing I keep telling my students, because I've met with my students a few times through Zoom and we send messages through our Google Classroom, but
Yeah,
we're all in this position together. Like nobody, we all keep kind of go, oh, it's, this is my problem or our problem. No, it's everybody's, situation right now. We're all learning how to cope with it and how to
yeah,
handle it. And they miss, the best part is they just, they miss playing with each other. They miss seeing each other. So having the technology and having that just so they could, tell a silly joke or stuff like that. I
I
mean,
know.
it's huge. It's
Yeah,
huge though. And so that's why I'm worried, some teachers may like try to inundate with so much stuff, but give them time, here,
yeah,
here's the
yeah,
time they don't have to go play for a rating. Here's the time where they don't have to, get bogged down by the calendar.
yeah,
Why don't we make
yeah,
the most of it and try to
yeah.
find the inspiration?
Exactly. Maybe you can just keep working on your skills, but yeah, there's not too much judgment.
Yeah.
It's just keep playing for
Yeah.
fun, and maybe some more improv. Play along with the
Yeah.
radio or something, whatever. But
Yeah.
something
We're
different.
trying, I have not been set up on smart music yet. And so now
Yeah,
with smart music, that's what I'm trying to do. Cause now I have that time to set up my classes and to import music and stuff like that. So that's been the learning curve for me to help present that to students and, trying to make sure everyone has access to it. And do you have your instrument? Do you have these supplies, so that's what we've been trying to work all this stuff out. But,
and well, don't forget, like even some pieces they already played. Just remind
mhm,
them, hey guys, you can go on
yeah,
YouTube or to the different publisher websites, and they've
yeah,
got
play
these
along.
videos.
Yeah.
Hey, check it out. Hey, did you know that? And like analyze the score a little bit. Did you know
Yeah.
this is what we're looking at? But
Yeah.
you've never actually looked at a score.
They've never seen it. Yeah. And so I've been trying to do some of that where you give them the score because I don't usually give them my score.
Right.
I might say, hey, look at what this looks like, but from the podium, they don't quite see that, or who else has the melody, or why is this written this way?
Right.
Yeah. So I think that's the fun, that's the funny thing is we're always so inspiring to the students and they're always so motivated to go to school for band. Now they don't have those opportunities,
Sure.
so where are we, finding inspirations and motivation? So that was a big thing. The last question they gave me, and this is the hardest question, so please,
Okay.
I'm glad you're sitting down. Uh, what is your favorite key signature and why?
Oh no. Oh man.
Oh,
I I mean I don't want to be lame, but I don't think I have one. I don't think I can pick one. I know I have some college kids, and they will tell me, "Oh, I just love D minor," or
yeah,
like, why? And they go, I don't know. And I don't know. I don't know why they love that either, or something, or maybe it's
yeah.
But I think just because I'm always transposing, and again, like with arranging, and I switch it to another key, and I mean, I guess in a way I'm fond of flat keys just because I write in those so much, but that's not to say they're my favorites. I really just have to say I don't have one.
Okay.
I'm sorry.
You're equal to all to all key centers.
Okay, I have some least favorite ones. Yeah.
Okay.
So those would be just ones that people can't play in tune.
Yeah, the deep end of the pool. We call it the deep end of the pool. That don't go in there, guys. Just know it, but know it's there, but don't stay swimming in there for sure. So, well, this is a lot of fun. Thanks for the opportunity. I really do appreciate it.
Thank you for the opportunity too. This is wonderful. Wonderful to meet you.
Yeah.
And
Thank you.
Well, thanks a lot for helping us do this, Brian and Carol, and we appreciate it greatly. And we will talk to you soon, and hope everybody has a good weekend. Talk to you soon.
All right. Take care, guys. Bye.